Hi, everyone, and welcome to Great Paws and All. Today, I'm really excited to welcome Emily Strong. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about her background. Emily Strong is co-owner of Pet Harmony, co-author of the book Canine Enrichment for the Real World and its companion workbook, and co-host the podcast Enrichment for the Real World. Emily's business partners Emily with her business partners developed and operate a professional development mentorship program called Pet Pro. Emily's been involved in various animal welfare fields since 1990, with experience ranging from shelters and rescues to vet hospitals and wildlife rehabilitation. They've been working as a behavior consultant since 2008. Passion is working with multiple species, but their favorite species is to work with humans, which is why the primary focus is mentorship. Emily lives in Seattle with partner Chuck, dogs Copper and Miley, Kaya the eclectus parrot, 2 freshwater aquariums, way too many plants, and an entire wall of tea. Emily, welcome. I understand about the too many plants and wall of tea, but welcome. I'm very, very happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. I'm just going to mention something very quickly. This is a little bit different because obviously my niche and focus are senior dogs. But
Hmm.
lately I've decided to, I guess, introduce another pillar to this niche, which is preparing a dog for their senior years.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about mostly enrichment, which is such an important thing for senior dog parents to know about, but equally as
Hmm.
important, or can I say more important? I don't know,
Mm.
for dogs that are not quite at their senior stage yet.
Mm.
So let's just jump in, and I'm going to ask for someone who's never heard the term canine enrichment, what does it
Hmm.
actually mean?
Yeah, so if you think about um how wild animals evolved to live in their ecosystem wherever they evolved, they are capable, right? They are incredibly adept at thriving in that environment, and they're able to take care of their physical, behavioral, and emotional health. I mean, things happen to animals. Like, there are always for everybody things that lie beyond our control, but for the most part, they are autonomous beings who are highly skilled and they're able to meet their own needs, right? So enrichment is providing the opportunity for companion animals to have a very similar experience to what wild animals would have. Enrichment is helping animals to be empowered, autonomous beings who are skilled and have the means to take care of themselves, and we are creating an environment that allows them to be physically, behaviorally, and emotionally healthy. And I want to add an addendum to that because, especially when we're talking about senior and geriatric dogs, a lot of people think, well, my dog can't be physically healthy because they have these diseases. Health doesn't mean the absence of disease or injury. Health means that your body, if we're talking about physical health, it means that your body is supported so that you can thrive with whatever your physical reality is, right? So you can have a disease and thrive. I have multiple chronic illnesses, but I am healthy because my body is well supported and I have the ability to thrive in the context of my chronic illnesses, right? So that's a description more than a definition of enrichment. So if I were to distill all of that down into a description or a definition, I mean, what enrichment is making sure that an animal is empowered to be the best version of themselves so that they can be as physically, behaviorally, and emotionally healthy as possible.
Okay, we're going to go into more detail about that. I want to mention, because you mentioned senior dogs, obviously.
Hmm.
We're going to have another conversation
Yeah.
specifically about senior dogs. So I just wanted
Hmm.
to mention that. People stay
Yeah.
tuned. Um,
Yeah.
I know when people, they often think about enrichment as puzzle toys, and I
Mm.
wish I could say that I don't think that too, but I do. It's always like, get your senior dog puzzle toys, food dispensing toys,
Hmm.
which are
Hmm.
good, of
Yeah.
course, but
Yeah.
what does it actually encompass?
Yeah. So enrichment encompasses anything and everything that facilitates physical, behavioral, and emotional health. So if we're thinking of enrichment as reducing harm and improving welfare and well-being, anything that allows us to accomplish that is a part of that animal's enrichment plan, right? So yes, food puzzles are a part of it, but the food puzzles in and of themselves aren't enrichment. They're only enrichment if they in some way improve that animal's life.
Oh,
So
interesting.
if we give a dog a food puzzle and the dog has done that food puzzle a million times before, and it's not no longer a challenge for them, and it's about as interesting as eating from a food bowl for that dog, it's not enrichment because it's not mentally stimulating, it's not giving them the opportunity to forage, it's not providing something called constructive discontent, which is the ability to meet and overcome a challenge,
Mm,
right? So that food bowl, that food puzzle is functionally the same as a food bowl because it's not stimulating that dog in any way. The food is in it, they get the food out, it's done,
of
right?
course.
Conversely, if a food puzzle is so hard that the dog doesn't really know how to
Mm,
engage with it, it's not enrichment because the dog's not engaging with it, right? So the food puzzle in itself is not enrichment. Giving the dog a food puzzle is an enrichment activity, and we observe whether or not the dog's life is functionally better as a result of using that food puzzle. And then we can say after the fact, enrichment has happened. We saw that the dog engaged with the food puzzle, and as a result, they they played with it, they were challenged by it, and after they did it, they're content now. We see they took a deep sigh when they were done, and they curled up and they're just lounging now, and they look highly content. So that tells us that in that moment, that enrichment activity did in fact enrich the dog, right? So enrichment is about the outcomes, not the objects.
okay, so how do we know what kind of enrichment our dog actually enjoys? Is it because they didn't walk away and they weren't frustrated and they didn't give up, or
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, the way that we know that is by observing the dog's behavior, right? So being a good observer of behavior helps us to assess what's actually going on when the dog interacts with something that we hope will be enriching. So we have to know what we're hoping to get out of it, right? If I give a dog a food puzzle, I might give that food puzzle for a few different reasons. I might want that dog. It might actually be a physical health goal. If I see a dog who's just scarfing their food, I'm like, that dog is going to get acid reflux if they keep eating like that. I would like to encourage them to slow down and eat more slowly and chew their food. So in that case, I am giving that enrichment toy with a goal of improving physical health. And so what I would observe is if the dog is actually eating slower and chewing their food, ta-da, enrichment has happened. We have met that physical health goal, right? If I'm giving a food puzzle because I want that dog to have foraging opportunities, and I see that the dog is batting it around and the food kind of gets scattered out of it and they have to sniff around to find the food, then I can observe that foraging has happened. The dog, so that was successful. My goal was that the dog foraged, and in fact, I observed that the dog did forage, right? If I want it as a mental challenge, as an actual puzzle, and I give them a toy that has like they've got to like flip the lids and twist the top and that kind of stuff. And I see that the dog is like, I'm not sure what to do here. And they try a bunch of different things. And finally they figure out how to flip the lid and they get the food out. They struggle to figure out how to twist the top, but they do it. They twist the top and they get the food out. Then I can go, aha, mental exercise has happened, right? So I'm observing the outcome. Now, sometimes what happens is that the outcome is still enrichment. It's not what we planned, but that's still a good thing. It's still enrichment, right? So if I give them a food puzzle for that physical health component that we talked about, and then I observe that the dog is also foraging or the dog is also mentally stimulated, I'm like, wow, this enrichment puzzle gave us three benefits. Not only the one that I was hoping, the physical health benefit, but also I see that the dog is foraging and the dog is had a mental puzzle where they had to think about it. That's awesome, right? But I know that puzzle yielded the results by observing. So what this means, to get back to your original question, how do we know what to offer? We guess. Right? The bet we call it at Pet Harmony, we call it trial and eval because it's not an error, right?
Right,
We're just evaluating our
right.
outcomes and that gives us good information. That doesn't mean it's an error. It's just like, oh, that outcome wasn't what I expected. But we call it trial and eval. So if I have a dog who has a lot of energy, then I might say, you know what I think this dog might benefit from is an agility class. Let's try it out and see if agility does help that dog to down regulate, which means like
Mm,
become less stressed and less energetic, right? And then we put them in agility and we observe the outcome. So
right.
if you know what your goal is, you can usually make a pretty good guess about what effort is going to yield the outcome that you want, but you still have to observe to see did it actually work out the way we thought it would, right?
So I'm going to ask you something based on what you just talked about, and I may be
Mhm.
jumping ahead questions. I don't know, but this is the place to ask it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's great.
um, how do we know what our goals are? I know, like I signed up for you have a step-by-step guide to build your own enrichment plan, which is
Hmm.
amazing.
Yeah.
Um, but how do we know what our goals are? I mean, I
Hmm.
want to say we should know our dogs well enough to know like what they're lacking, or like you say, if they're very high energy, maybe something like agility would help or
Hmm.
whatever. But what if we don't know our dogs that well? Or we do, but we have no idea what they need
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
what we should give them? What do we do
Yeah. I think um for most dogs, because they evolved with us, they've co-evolved with humans for at least 25,000 years. Most people don't have to be dog experts. Most people can have a pretty good sense of like, my dog is asking me for social bonding. My dog is coming to me and asking me for pets. I'm going to pet them. That's
there?
enrichment. People just don't realize that that's enrichment,
Is it? Why
right?
is that enrichment? Can I ask? Because it
Yeah,
satisfies
yeah,
their
yeah.
needs to be connected,
Right.
or
So yes, because dogs are a social species and because they co-evolved with humans and we have a symbiotic relationship with them, part of their social bonding in this context, that's not true for every dog, right? Feral dogs don't really need humans, but for the dogs who were raised with humans, they need social bonding with their family. That is a need that contributes to their behavioral and emotional health and sometimes even physical health. And so if they are seeking that social connection and we give it to them, that provides them with a lot of benefits. Like I said, behavioral benefits. The fancy term for that is secure attachment. In other words, knowing that we are reliable, excuse me,
Mhm.
reliable partners. Um, Emotional regulation. That social bonding helps both humans and dogs complete
Yeah.
their stress response cycle and get back down to a nice, healthy baseline. Sometimes I mentioned like physical health. There are sometimes physical benefits to being petted, like it stimulates circulation in the skin so it can improve skin health, right?
Okay.
So if your dog asks for social connection and you give it to them and you see that afterwards they're calmer, they're content, maybe when they're petted their coat glows, then we can say enrichment has happened, right? So you don't have to be an expert to just recognize that your dog is telling you, I'm bored, I need an activity, and people will try different activities, and a lot of times we're successful, right? So so it doesn't have to be a really uh complicated enrichment plan. Most of the time, people are doing a really good job of meeting their dog's needs
Hmm.
just by having a relationship with them and knowing what the dogs are asking for, right? Um, but sometimes needs can be a little more complicated, or the environment itself can be more complicated. And if somebody is trying to help their dog and the dog is just has needs that the person doesn't understand, that's what behavior professionals are for.
Hmm.
Animal behavior professionals can help you identify what your dog's needs are and give you some strategies that we can try to better meet those needs. And I will say, this is an unregulated field. So there are a lot of people who call themselves dog trainers who don't know
Yes,
anything about enrichment, or they
absolutely
think
true.
they do.
Or
They use the
training,
terms.
or
Right, right.
training.
Right. But I've seen a lot of people who think like they've figured out that enrichment is trendy, and so they'll talk about enrichment, but
Hmm.
when I see on their website how they're talking about it, I'm like, you don't know what enrichment is. You're just using that term because you've
Right.
learned that it's popular, right?
That's right. That's right.
So you want to look for an animal behavior professional who talks about using enrichment-based training, talks about meeting needs, and can
Mhm.
demonstrate that they have these skills for identifying the unmet need and then trying strategies and then observing the outcomes to see whether or not the strategies were effective,
Okay. And
right?
I'm putting your link in the description so everybody will
Yeah,
know. And
we
when you
have an
talked,
entire team.
yes, which is amazing. So when you talked about it having, like, it could be very simple. It doesn't have to be this
Mhm.
whole complicated thing. Can it,
Yeah.
I know sniffing and just exploring and letting the dog kind of make their own choices, could it be that
Mhm.
simple?
Oh, yes, yes. I am a big proponent of asking dogs to sniff. Um,
Mhm.
don't quote me on this because I am not a behavioral biologist, but I think that a third of their brain is devoted to processing olfactory information, which means smelling things and then making sense, gathering information from what
Right.
they're smelling. And there are some researchers up in Canada on the eastern seaboard, Simone Gadbois and Catherine Reeve, who did some work where they looked at brain scans of dogs that they got from the shelters who had no experience with using their nose. And then they taught those dogs how to do types of scent work, and then they rescanned the brains and they were able to see visual structural changes in the brain as a result of giving the dogs the opportunity to do what they evolved to do.
Mhm.
There's another researcher, Alexandra Horowitz, and her team who have done a series of studies on this. And what they have found is that scent work reduces anxiety and improves dogs' optimism. The fancy term for that is positive outcome bias, but we can
Okay.
call it optimism. In other words, dogs who historically were anxious about something because they were afraid that something bad would happen as a result of doing daily nose work, those dogs were like, actually, probably something good is going to happen from this. I'm going to go ahead and
Mhm.
explore this or investigate it because probably good things are going to happen. So, and I have seen that working with thousands of dogs, nose work is a really important part of the puzzle for improving their physical, behavioral, and emotional health. So I think every dog should have opportunities to not just sniff, but to learn how to use their super sniffers to find things that are good that they want to procure. And that can be as simple as a scatter feeding. Find it. You throw a few treats
Hmm.
in the grass and
Right.
let the dog find the treats. It does, again, it doesn't have to be a big complicated thing. It can be very simple. I love me a find it game.
Right. Actually, when I was volunteering at a shelter here a while ago, one of the things they always had us do was bring a handful of dry food or treats or whatever. And as we're walking,
Yes.
especially if there was like another dog or a person and the dog was quite anxious, you want to make sure you distract them. We would just, and scent work, of course, we would just throw it
Yes.
into the grass and they would love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so simple, anyone can do
It's
it.
so simple. Anyone can do it. And it is so beneficial for the dogs.
Okay,
And I
fantastic.
will say, sorry to interrupt, but
No, not at all.
a lot of clients who come to us, they want loose leash walking training. We
Hmm.
just teach them how to play find it with the dogs. And if you,
Okay.
instead of thinking of it as I'm going on a walk, you think of it as like I'm going on a sniffari, and you like
Yeah.
take a few steps, you stop, you play find it, you take a few steps, you stop, you say find it. That we teach loose leash walking by just teaching the dogs how to walk while using their nose to explore and sniff. So the byproduct of them doing nose work on these sniffaris is that they are walking on a loose leash. So it benefits the humans too.
And they're not getting frustrated because their dog is all over the place. They're actually
Right.
teaching them, but in a fun way and beneficial for the dog.
Right.
Fascinating. Fascinating. So if you could have every dog parent start doing one thing today that would make life
Hmm.
easier for their dog as they age, because that's what
Hmm.
we're kind of talking about, what would
Hmm.
that be? Would it
Find
be,
it.
it would be fun. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
yeah.
Daily. So there are exceptions to this rule because some dogs have medical reasons that this is not true, or there may be other
Right.
reasons. But generally speaking, ideally for most dogs, they are playing find it or scatter feeding, whatever you want to call it, for one meal a day. At least they are getting that much scent work that they are using their nose to find an entire meal of food per day. So that is the amount of scent work that I wish every dog would do. That one meal is just through scent work.
Really?
Yeah.
So like going outside or even around the house, just scattering an entire meal kind of in one go, or
So it depends. Most dogs have to work up to that because people assume that because dogs have a really good sense of smell, that they just automatically know how to the term for this is trailing scents. Trailing is
right,
following a scent trail to find the object.
right.
Um, but scent trailing is actually a skill that they have to learn. And for feral dogs, the parents, especially the mom, will teach the puppies for months how to trail scents. Most dogs can't just, if you just like took their serving of food and scattered it in the backyard, most dogs don't have the skill to do that right away.
Okay.
So we start out with a find it game where it's just a few treats in a small area, and when I see that the dog can find all those treats without any help, then I'll use a few more treats and increase the area.
Okay.
And then I just keep doing that. When they're really good at the current stage that they're at, I'll increase the food and increase the area that we're scattering. So it's a little bit of extra work up front to teach the dogs how to do that. But by the end of that training plan, it becomes as fast for the humans as dumping food in a bowl because they just take that serving of food and they just
Mm,
scatter like you're scattering seeds, just
right.
scatter it out in
Okay.
the yard. For people who don't have yards or it's inclement weather where you really can't do that, or if the dog has health issues where it's not safe to do that in the grass, I'll teach them how to do the same thing with snuffle mats
Stuff on
in the
that. Yeah.
house.
Hmm.
So I like snuffle mats have gotten way too fancy. I
Oh,
like
they're
the old
very
school.
fancy, some of
I
them.
like the old school snuffle mats that's just a bunch of felt that mimics grass. That's what I
Oh,
want.
right. Oh, no.
So
No.
I'll just get like we start with just one snuffle mat And then when the dog is good at finding the food in that, we'll start separating out into multiple snuffle mats. And then
Oh,
the kind of the peak is where we hide the snuffle mats around the house. So the dog has to find each snuffle mat, eat the food in it, find the next one. And that
interesting.
gives them, that is a skill on par with the scatter feeding the
Yeah,
whole meal in the yard. So we can achieve the same thing in a house as we would in a yard if the client doesn't have access to the yard scatter
right.
feeding for whatever reason,
Okay.
right?
So, how can teaching a dog to enjoy different types of enrichment help when their physical abilities change? Like when they get older, they develop mobility issues, whatever.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we're learning more in human medicine is that if you don't use it, you lose it.
Hmm.
And with the advice for injuries and stuff like that used to be rest, don't,
Right.
go easy on it.
That's
And
right.
now physical therapists are like, if we want you to fully recover, you got to use these joints, right?
Hmm.
So if you have access to a veterinary physical therapist, and that's a resource that is within your um cap capabilities, access. I can't think of a
Yeah.
better word than access. Um, I strongly recommend using a physical therapist because they can tell you how to push your dog in a way, and I don't mean like physically push the
No,
dog, but
for
how to
sure.
challenge the dog in a way that promotes well-being and slows the progress of joint disease or increases the progress of healing from an injury without pushing to the point of making it worse,
Yeah.
right? That really requires a professional to help with that. So one thing that because my time as a vet tech, one of our mantras was age is not a disease. Just because your dog is old doesn't mean they're not capable, right?
I say that
And
every
so,
time.
yeah. So, limiting your dog's access to opportunities just because they're old actually does more harm than good.
Hmm.
So, if they have joint disease or some kind of injury and you have access to a physical therapist, I strongly recommend that. If that's not available to you, then gentle but consistent activity can be the next best thing. So what I mean by that is I'm not going to take I have a 17-year-old dog. I don't take him on the marathon walks that we used to be able to take to go on. But like most evenings after dinner, we go on a walk and I let him tell me, my partner and I, we all walk together. Copper is the name of our 17-year-old dog. He leads the walk. We have a 2-year-old dog named Miley. She doesn't lead the walk because she would run us
Yeah.
all into the ground. But Copper leads the walk and he tells us, are we doing a block today? Are we doing 2 blocks?
Yeah.
Um, but we keep that movement happening and Miley keeps Copper young because they go out in the backyard together and she plays with him. But the beauty of that is that he has control over it. So when he's tired,
Hmm.
he says, I need a break, Miley, and he'll just go lie down under the bushes, right?
Right.
So letting the animals, it, creating an environment where the animals want to move and then letting them decide when they need rest is really healthy for them because then you don't risk pushing them too hard. And they can get that gentle, consistent movement, but also they can stop when they need to stop, when they're tired or when they're sore. So we don't live by the no pain, no gain mentality. We
Hmm.
live by gentle, consistent activity. That is our mantra. And the same is true for mental challenge. Uh, Copper, as a 17-year-old dog, he doesn't have quite the sense of smell that he used to. He's not quite as good at finding
Hmm.
really tricky scents, but I still do scent work with him every day.
Oh,
And
wow.
when I find that there's something that's a little challenging for him, I will help him find it because I know that his sniffer's not what it used to be,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So I still give him those opportunities. The difference is I support him through the part that's hard for him
Hmm.
instead of just, when he was younger, I could just throw it out and let him handle
Right.
it on his own,
Right.
right? So now I just offer social support and I let him do as much as he can. And if there's parts that are hard for him, I'll help him out. So I think if I were to summarize everything that I just said, give them all the opportunities that you would give them when they were younger, but be there to support them when they tell you they need a
Right.
break or when they tell you I need help, right? And that really is functionally that's the only difference that I'm doing with my super
Okay.
geriatric dog
Right.
versus what I did when he was younger.
So do you find that people with dogs that are not seniors yet, whatever the age, they really focus more on like physical exercise and don't really think about mental stimulation?
Yeah, I mean it's getting better, but a lot of people know to take their dogs on walks, but not everybody knows even how to use a walk to improve
Hmm.
mental stimulation, to provide foraging opportunities, to improve social bonding. Um, and I think there's still a lot of leftover, even people who don't ascribe to the old school kind of 1950s really harsh training methods. Um, there's this leftover belief system about walks that dogs have to walk at a heel or they have to keep their head up. They can't put their heads on the
Oh
ground
gosh.
or um I still encounter stuff like this all the time. I'm trying to think of some other weird ones, but the loose leash walking needs to be on the human's terms, not the dog's terms. And so even people who are would like to use kinder methods, um they still kind of have that mindset of we go on a walk, we maintain this
Right.
particular pace,
Right.
the dog has to stay in step with me, the dog has to like we don't stop and sniff, or if we stop and sniff I'm going to give them like a minute and then we
Yeah.
keep moving. And all of that is working against their own purpose because we're missing opportunities to have walks meet so many needs. And the reality is that dogs walk at a different pace than humans. And so when they're tethered to us, it actually impacts their gait and how they walk. And for larger dogs, they can't get the stride and the pace that they need to even get really good cardiovascular exercise. So, having a dog on that kind of short leash type of walk actually isn't even really giving them a whole lot of physical exercise either because they're not able, it's kind of stilting their gait and
Right.
they're not able to
Interesting.
like really stretch out and get that cardiovascular exercise. So, we teach people how to think differently about walks so that their dog can walk in a way that is natural to their bodies. They can actually get cardiovascular exercise, but they're also getting mental exercise, foraging, social bonding. We're strengthening some of their skills like observing, checking in with their handler, all of that stuff. And that's just walks, right? All I've talked about right now so far is walks. So, um, giving dogs opportunities that let them here's how I want people to think about it because I don't need people to be experts and know everything that I know. The way that I talk to clients about it is give your dog the opportunity to be the doggiest dog they can be. If you have a dog who likes chewing things or destroying things, but you don't like what they're chewing, that's valid. You shouldn't have to live in a household with it like where your
Mhm.
dog is destroying all your furniture, but pay attention to what it is that they like to chew and give them opportunities to
Right.
chew something of a similar texture, right? If you have a
Right.
dog who loves digging, yeah, it's valid. You don't want them digging up your rose bushes. You worked hard to grow those. But then figure out what it is that they like about digging. Do they like the resistance of the roots? Are they digging to hunt worms? Do they have just pent up energy? Do they like building tunnels? figure out what it is that they like about digging and then find a way to give them a similar opportunity, right? So that's really the summary of it is whatever your dog likes to do, give them opportunities to do more of it in a way that doesn't wreck your life
Right.
so
Oh, I
that
love that.
you can meet your needs and their needs at the same time, right?
I love that because even if it's something like a sandbox just for them,
Yeah.
like burying toys or whatever, I
Yeah.
love that.
I had a client with a dog who really loved the resistance of the roots.
Uh-huh.
And she had tried a kiddie pool filled with dirt with toys in it, and the dog would like kind of futz around in it and then just go back to digging at the
Yeah.
under the bushes. So I had her drill holes on either side of the kiddie pool and put bungee cords through the
Oh,
across the kiddie pool. And then we put dirt on top and we packed that dirt really hard, like we all
wow.
stomped on it. And then we let the dog play with it and he like dug and dug and he got down to those bungee cords and he was just like pulling at them like
Oh my
he was really
gosh.
into the bungee cords. So we were like, this is why he didn't care about your kiddie pool effort
Right.
because you weren't giving him the what he likes about digging
Yeah.
is the resistance of the
Yeah.
roots. So you got to give him the resistance, right?
Wow. That is genius. Really
Well,
genius. I
it's
love that.
understanding enrichment and being
Right.
able to observe what he's getting out of the activity,
It's
right?
not just about puzzle toys.
All right.
That's
Yeah.
as we now know. So, what should people consider when choosing enrichment for? I mean, listen, all our dogs have different personalities. So,
Hmm.
instead of buying what's popular, Kongs and whatever's popular in the
Hmm.
moment, how do but we probably touched on this already, but how do they consider like what to choose?
Um, so if you know the animal, if you have spent any amount of time with the animal and have observed their behavior, you probably have a pretty good idea of what they enjoy doing. So give them more opportunities to do what they enjoy with an asterisk. I'm going to come back to that statement. In general, give them more opportunities to do what they enjoy. Um, we also have an enrichment chart, which you should have gotten with your when you signed up for the um enrichment plan
Mhm.
thing, right? Did you get the enrichment chart with the 14 categories?
I think so. I kind of went straight to the actual, like how to figure out which enrichment. I don't remember because I did it
Okay.
a while ago.
Okay. I'll make sure that I get it to you for this episode. Lily Chin
Should
actually
I
did a
link to
beautiful
that? I
job.
can link to it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Lily Chin did a beautiful job of illustrating the 14 categories of enrichment. So if you're not sure what your dog needs or wants, um, you can just look at those 14 categories and be like, aha, this dog might need some more calming activities. If this dog is always wired and no matter how much exercise we give, I mean, that's less of a problem usually with senior and
Right.
geriatric
No,
dogs.
I feel like I did
Yeah.
get it. It sounds familiar. I just went straight to the actual. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are things that you can there are kind of like an inventory of things that you can try, but for the most part, um, giving dogs more opportunities to do the things that they enjoy doing is gonna just if you did nothing but that, you would improve the dog's life by leaps and bounds, right? Um, if you don't know the dog or you got the dog from like a hoarding situation or a puppy mill situation where they're just really not doing a lot of anything, they're just kind of shut down,
Mm,
that's where I would hire a behavior professional if you can, because that person is going to help you, um, for lack of a better term, help that dog come out of their shell so we get to see
mm,
who they are and what they want.
yeah.
And then I said I was going to follow up on an asterisk. If you have a dog who does one thing all the time, that's not enjoyment, that's compulsion. So if you have a dog who spends all day like ball, 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 or who spends all day digging, or who spends all day barking, that's not enjoyment, that's a compulsion. So we don't want to give them more of that.
Right.
Again, you need to hire a behavior professional to help you navigate that and figure out how to give that dog um, more options in their life.
So, is there anything people can do during their dog's younger years that would help them recognize what their dog enjoys so that they're better prepared for their senior years? Or
Yeah.
does that not make sense because they evolve and maybe their likes and dislikes change for whatever reason?
I mean, both are true at the same time. Knowing
Okay.
your dog now, giving them skills and opportunities, trying lots of different things with them and seeing what they respond to, teaching them how to do things that. So I think one thing is people mistake ignorance for disinterest. So a dog won't engage in something and they'll be like, oh, my dog doesn't like that. And it's like, well, we don't actually know that your dog doesn't like that. Your dog just has no idea what it is or how to use it. Right.
Right.
So,
Right.
so teaching a dog how to play with a toy or play a game or use something, and then after they know how to do it, assessing whether or not they seek it out or if they were like, yeah, okay, that was great. Thanks
Mm.
for teaching me that. Um, the more the fancy term for it is called behavioral diversity, which is that an animal has a lot of
Hmm.
behaviors available to them and
Right.
they utilize those behaviors regularly. The more behavioral diversity a dog has when they're younger, the better off they're going to be as they age. Because if they have more skills, more ways to meet their own needs, more ways for navigating their environment, and they know how to learn, they know how to investigate, they know how to experiment, then as they age and their bodies change and their interests and capabilities change, they are going to be more flexible and it's going to be easier for you to adjust the plan for them or to find new things for them that they are interested in. So that's why I said both are true at the same time.
Hmm.
Yes, their needs and interests will change as they age. And also, the more behavioral diversity and empowerment you give them when they're younger, the easier those transitions will be when they're older.
And of course, it said that mental stimulation, because again, because the focus for me is always senior dogs, when we talk
Right.
about mental stimulation, it could help, not only stave off boredom, but also dementia potentially. So I
Yeah.
wonder if starting this so much earlier gives them a better chance of not developing dementia possibly or
Yeah.
later in
I
life.
don't know.
And
Yeah.
we don't
So
know,
I don't
but
know. I don't know because I don't know what causes canine cognitive dysfunction. I mean, we're only just starting to kind of figure out what causes it in humans.
yeah.
But what I would say is the more that you do that when they're younger, it's not going to hurt. It's not going to cause
Yeah,
dementia, right?
of course.
And it has the potential to help. So to me, there's no downside to doing it. But more importantly, if a dog is highly skilled and then we start to see a deterioration of those skills, we're going to be able to recognize the onset of canine cognitive dysfunction much
Okay.
sooner than a dog
Interesting.
who's just unskilled. And it's hard to tell, are they not doing stuff because they don't do stuff? They're a potato, or are they not doing stuff because they're starting to experience
Mm,
dementia?
that's a
Right.
very good point. Yeah.
So to me, the value is just giving the dog the best life they can give, but also it serves as an early warning sign so that you can start treatment as soon as possible.
Yeah, people usually catch it when it's quite advanced.
Right.
So all this activity, so this sounds, and I'm sure it's not true, but it sounds like it's constant activity, constant stimulation.
Mhm.
How do we make sure we're not creating like monsters who have to be entertained every second of the day?
Yeah. Yeah. That is, I would say, probably one of the most common mistakes that people make when they
Mhm.
try to enrich their animal. And the way that I explain it to them is, you have to think about behavioral health in the context of what these behaviors evolved to do for these animals, right? So if you look at a wild animal, they are chasing something long enough to catch it and hunt it. And then when they're done, they sleep, they rest for hours, they
Mhm.
lounge around, right? They're not stalking and chasing things for hours and hours and hours and hours. They do it long enough to get the job done,
Right.
right? If they're foraging, if they're not hunters, if they're foragers, they might spend more time doing it. A lot of bird species, or parrot in particular, a lot of parrot species will spend about 8 hours a day foraging, but they're not doing it all at once. And when they're done foraging, they do other things. They groom themselves. They talk to each other. They rest, right?
Mhm.
So, if people are doing some kind of activity or exercise and it's not helping the dog to relax, the answer isn't more activity. The answer is we need to ask ourselves, why is this behavior, are these behaviors persisting even after the physical needs have been met? And that usually
Right.
indicates that there are other unmet needs. And I think one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that animals in the wild that live where they evolved to live, um, they know how to complete their stress response cycle. They know how to have a period of activity followed by rest. And I think most people would be surprised at how much, especially mammals, rest in the
Mm.
wild. And so teaching animals in captivity, or companion animals, I mean, dogs aren't captive. They've been domesticated for 25,000 plus years. But teaching any animal, any companion animal, regardless of the species, how to complete their stress response cycle, how to have a period of activity followed by a period of rest is a huge part of enrichment. And it's why calm is one of the 14 enrichment categories, because we have to teach animals how to become calm, how to rest, if they're not doing that on their own. The answer is not more exercise, more activity. The answer is, why is this activity not allowing them to complete their stress response cycle? And what do we need to change to help them do that?
Which is not something we can figure out on our own, though. Really, we need people like yourself, like experts, to really help us figure it out, don't we? If we want the best for our dogs, it seems.
Yeah. So yes, and you don't always have to hire a behavior professional. Sometimes people just need to hear that to be able to figure out what to do differently. I've had a
Um,
lot of people tell me that they listened to the podcast and they realized that they were trying to solve their problem through exercise. And when they heard me talk about this on the podcast, they were like, well, what would happen if I just put my dog in my bedroom with a chewy treat and dimmed the lights and music and let him take a nap? And they were like, ta-da, it worked, right?
okay.
So I think people need behavior professionals to tell them what the goal is. And a lot
Okay.
of people can figure it out for themselves. They don't have to hire a behavior professional to help them. That would be really impractical, since most people on this planet don't have access to animal
Yeah,
behavior professionals,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Um, so, and I would say also that this is an urban problem, because most dogs around the world are, uh, most people in the world don't keep their dogs in homes and
Yeah,
walk them on leashes. So
exactly.
most dogs around the world know how to take care of themselves and complete their stress response cycle and
Right.
meet their own needs. So, so we're solving an artificial problem that we have
That we
caused,
created. Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and because of that, most people with most dogs can figure it out on their own if they just know that that's something they should figure out, instead of being in that space of, if the dog has too much energy, you exercise them more, right? So really what people need from us is the mindset shift, and most people
Mhm.
can figure it out on their own. We are here to support people who have dogs who need more support, who they know, the clients know it, they've tried it and it's still not working.
Mhm.
That's who we're here to help, is the people who are like, I can't I can't figure out how to help my dog rest. I've tried and nothing I've tried has worked,
Right.
right? But a lot of people, once they know that that's the goal, are able to figure it out on their own.
Once we figure out what the goal is. I'm going to link to your
Yes.
podcasts, which are amazing. So the last question I have is, what do you wish more people understood about preparing a dog for aging? And I think I want to add to that. I don't know if they think about preparing a dog for aging,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is why I'm introducing this other pillar. Because I mean, I've never had I had a young dog once, but I adopt old dogs. So I
Hmm.
kind of start with them being old with issues. But I
Yeah.
don't know if most people think about how to prepare them. I think it's just like they get older one day and say, "Oh my gosh, my dog is
Yeah.
tall," or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think the most important thing is that most people don't know the life stages of dogs, and they don't know that dog like dogs enter their senior phase between 7 and 8 years old,
Hmm.
and then they enter the geriatric phase between 10 and 12 years old. So I think the biggest thing that people need to know is that it starts a lot earlier than people think. And by the time they're like, oh man, my dog is pretty old, their dog has probably already been a
Older.
geriatric for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah,
They blew right
probably.
through the senior phase. And like,
Yeah.
so I tell people to start thinking about and preparing for the senior years when their dog is 5 or 6,
Hmm.
middle aged. Um, and that can look like a lot of different things. I really want to pay attention since musculoskeletal disease is so common in dogs. I want to start paying attention to the gait. If we're seeing any gait changes, we need to figure
Hmm.
out if there's some early joint disease, because the earlier we catch it
Yeah,
and support it, the slower the progression and the better
absolutely.
quality of life. Um, I want people to start paying attention to changes in the mouth. A lot of people just assume that dogs have bad breath. I mean, we have that, like dog breath is
Yeah.
a phrase. And so, like, in our culture, it's implied that dogs have bad
Yeah,
breath, but
absolutely.
bad breath is dogs don't intrinsically have bad breath. It's just that dental disease is so common in dogs
Yeah.
that just because it's common doesn't mean it's
It's
normal,
normal.
right?
Yeah, they think it's normal.
Right. So if your dog has bad breath, that's a sign of dental disease or upper GI disease or both.
Hmm.
And the sooner that we treat that, um, the better, because dental disease doesn't just impact the mouth, it also can impact the heart, the kidneys. Infections can become systemic if they start in the
Yeah.
mouth. Upper GI disease can cause long-term impacts to not only the dog's um physical health but also behavioral health. There's a huge gut brain connection, and a lot
Mhm.
of people don't know that the gut produces more serotonin than the brain does. So if the gut is compromised or chronically inflamed, it can cause the dog to be more anxious, more reactive, less stress resilience, right?
Mhm.
So, dental disease really impacts a lot of different things. And so, if you have a dog who's 5 and their breath is starting to stink, um, and you have access to a vet and dental care, because not everybody does, and it's
Yeah.
really expensive,
Yeah.
um, then I would take care of that. And I would say, as somebody who didn't have access, I couldn't afford, dentals are so expensive in the United States
Very.
right now. One thing that I did when I was going through a period of my life where I knew I wouldn't be able to afford dental care for dogs is I just made sure that my dogs had that combination of bacterial control and mechanical scraping by giving them CET chews,
Hmm.
which are have chlorhexidine in them, which kill bacteria. I made sure that they had access to other kind of chewable type of things that would kind of scrape their teeth,
Yeah.
and I would make sure that they had access to some kind of chlorhexidine oral product. So I was able to delay their need for dental for many, many years, by proactively making sure that they had the combination of bacterial control and mechanical scraping, because I knew I couldn't afford a dental
Wow, that
surgery.
is
Right.
very interesting.
So,
It's amazing you knew, like you thought of that though.
well, I grew up in vet clinics. Like, I'm a vet tech. I have
Right.
that knowledge.
Yeah, but it would
Um,
be great if, oh my, the sun has shifted. Look, I'm partly in shadow.
I see it. I
Isn't
see
that
it.
crazy? Look at that. I have to
Yeah.
move. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Um, so so um those are the big things is be aware like when your dog hits 5, start paying attention to age-related changes and start supporting them now because your dog's gonna be entering their senior years in a couple
Mm,
of years and they start having age-related changes and we want to make sure that they're as healthy as possible. That's the big thing to me is like if we because behavioral and emotional health are so impacted by physical health, if at the very least people were aware of how to better support their dog's physical health as they age, I think a lot of the behavioral and emotional health stuff is easier, right?
definitely. Okay, well, thank you so much. I'll tell you, I have learned a lot because I am guilty of thinking that enrichment is puzzle toys and sniffing, of course, but I didn't realize how involved enrichment was and how many different things we could really do to help our dogs, especially when they're younger, so that their senior years are as easy as we can make them with as good a quality of life as we can give them. So thank
Yeah,
you so
yeah.
much for all this
You're
amazing
welcome.
advice. And all the links will be in the description.
Hmm.
So if you want to check that out. And also, we will let you know when we're going to be doing a follow-up, which will be focused specifically on senior dogs and what senior dog parents can do now,
Yeah.
especially if they've adopted old dogs that have no experience with puzzle toys and all that sort of thing. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day, everybody.